What is up, Stout Nation? We're back with another video. I know it's been too long. I'm sorry. I've been trying to wait to get a hydraulic press, but my boss is edging me. It's coming soon. But in the meantime, we've got a video for you. Today, we are going to make a folding knife. Damascus folding knife. This is the design. This is the Damascus we're going to use. This is the handle material we're going to use. It's some beautiful, beautiful vintage micarta. Get a close-up of that. It's going to be epic. So this will be the second folding knife that I've ever made. I've got the first one right here. It's not great. I did this probably 6 months into making knives. The grind is bad, but if you ignore that, and if you ignore the finish, and if you ignore the action, then it's a fine knife. So we're going to try to improve on all of that today. This is the steel we're going to use. But what I'm going to do first is we're going to grind some lines into it, kind of following the edge of the blade. And then we're going to forge it flat. And that's going to give it some more depth in the pattern, hopefully. So let's do that.
You already know it's angle grinder time. I'm a dedicated member of the angle grinder community. Is this the best way to do a pattern like this? Probably not, but it's a pretty small blade, so the divots don't have to be very deep for it to make an impact on the pattern.
All right, I've got grooves ground into this thing, both sides. We're gonna fire up the forge and forge it flat. Hopefully these grooves will bring a little bit of interest to the pattern. So let's see what happens. All right, blade is forged, roughly smooth. Come have a look. You can still see some of the grooves a little bit, but I'm not too worried about it. It's still plenty thick that we're going to grind through anything that's still at the top, but hopefully that forging it flat gave enough compression to bring some of those layers to the top. I wasn't really worried about the shape because as long as it stays bigger than this, we're good, right? We're just going to grind it down anyway.
This wood with these holes that I'm drilling is going to act like a stand-in for a handle while we get the action dialed in. I'm also going to get started on the spring. We're going to cut that out roughly with the angle grinder and then clean it up on the reel grinder. Because I'm kind of eyeballing the shape of everything, I decided I should drill the holes before I finish shaping, because I would rather have my holes and then be able to shape around that than realize my shape is screwed up when I go to drill my holes, if that makes sense. We got pretty close on the 60 grit belt. Now I'm redrawing my lines and we're gonna move up to 120.
Don't get me wrong, it's a little bit finicky, and if the handle on the real knife ends up being a little bit larger than it is on the drawing, I'm okay with that. Right now I'm just kind of guesstimating where I should grind to. That looks pretty good. All right, we've got the spring shaped basically how I want it. We might trim up here a little bit, but then the idea is that when the spring will do its springy thing a little bit, and then this will turn and sit down in here. So in the closed position here, we just have to get a little bit off the tip So we'll just bring that in ever so slightly. And then in here, we're a little bit limited on space. So we'll just trace that up to where it meets the curve. And I think that will be just fine. It'll be a slightly slimmer blade, but I'm not mad about that. Let's get that traced onto our steel and then shape it.
I know I said trace, but actually we're just going to CA glue the template right onto the steel and then grind to the paper. It's a little easier. As per usual, I'm grinding away the super excess with the angle grinder. I'll get a metal bandsaw one of these days, but the angle grinder's easy enough. Now we just grind and grind and grind some more. And we're not even to the bevels yet. Now that we've got the blade shape how we want it, I'm center punching the pivot hole. I just kind of eyeballed it, which I did come to regret. You'll see that later.
We did it. We're a winner. My tang is too short. I'm going to be really sad. My blade's still way too long. But we're getting close. All right. So we finally fit. My only concern is this wiggle. And it's the same thing that we had on this one. All right, that's the same. So I think what we do is we bend the spring in so that it makes contact, and then we just take in the sides of the tang ever so slightly so that it still works. Okay, so I gotta sharpen that corner just a little bit. And actually, well, let's see, so that's good. That's good. All right, we're in a good spot, or at least close to a good spot. We're gonna bring the whole spring up so that it meets in that gap. I'm gonna file that. Actually, well, I'll round over the top of that spring just a little bit so that it fits perfectly into that. And then we're gonna scoot the whole thing up there. And I don't wanna do this too many times because I don't wanna bend this back out. But once that's hardened, it'll be fine. That's good. And then the only thing with this, well, once I bring this up, I might have to take the tip in just a little more, but it's fine. It's fine. We're all good. We're in a good spot. Next up is the heat treat for both the blade and the spring, but I'm going to get the bevels roughed in first to save myself some grinding later. All right, the blade is rough ground. We're going to heat treat it very soon, but first, because I'm greedy, I want to do a test etch. So I'm going to be mixing some etchant here. This is a little bit different process from what I did in the last video, and that's fine. I'm still figuring it out. Distilled water is better. It doesn't have other stuff in it. And I'm just eyeballing this. This is not an exact science. Apparently, you're supposed to add the acid to the water. You're not supposed to add the water to the acid. Something about splashing. I don't know precisely. And then we've got our ferric chloride. We're gonna do about 2/3 of a shot of that. Oh yeah, that looks nice. It looks like a whiskey when you pour it. It's a little more yellow maybe. We got that. And then we're gonna get our muriatic acid. And once again, about 2/3 of a shot. Shooting for equal parts, basically. And then we will loop this through our hole and dip it in there. All right, well that's pretty sweet. It's got good stripes going up the flats, and then we got our waves like we wanted along the bevel. I like that side even more. That's awesome.
After that little test edge, it's time to heat treat. We're gonna do the spring first. We didn't forge this at all, so I'm comfortable just quenching it straight up. Although that may have been a mistake. That's a little tease for you.
All right, we're gonna do the blade. This, I just have to be sure to get heated all the way through. Actually, before we quench it, I'm gonna normalize it because we did do some forging. But when I do go to quench, I gotta make sure to heat it all the way through, because if it's only partially hardened, then it won't etch right. For round 2. 1 normalizing cycle, 2 normalizing cycle. Ah, ha, 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 ha.
For those of you that couldn't tell, that was the Count from Sesame Street. I'm not an impressions guy. Don't be mad at me.
It's quench time, folks. All right. Go ahead and wipe these off, clamp them to this flat plate, and then get them in the oven to temper. Toasty still.
Wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not like it was just 1500 degrees or anything. All right, into the oven we go. I'm gonna do a little bit of a cooler temper than usual. The 350.
I did this and then immediately regretted it because it destroyed my bandsaw blade. So if anybody has any awesome tips for cutting micarta, that would be cool. This too. I mean, this, I should have had a blade for the bandsaw, but I didn't. So I just did this. Don't do this at home, kids. Here I'm just cleaning up the giant nasty burr from the angle grinder, and then I'm flattening out my micarta. Just getting my material all prepped.
Just scratch this up just so the glue has some place to go. Smiley face. It's sad. What's up, guys? It's day 2. We're back, pulling our things out of the temper. We've got a blade and a spring. Have a look. Let's unclamp these and see how we're doing. Oh yeah, that still looks so cool, even with the colors and stuff. I mean, you can kind of see the pattern though. That's sweet. We got that, and then we got our spring here, which means that it's time to start drilling holes in our handle scales so that we can actually dial in the action on this.
Once we get these handle scales unclamped, it's time to take them to the grinder, square them up so that the liners and the handle material are flush, and then we'll flatten out the bottom a little bit and start drilling our holes. Once that first hole is drilled, I'm going to put a pin in it, lay the spring over top, and use the second hole as a reference. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is lay the second scale below the top scale and use the first one as a reference to drill the holes in the second one.
So we've got our holes drilled in our scales for the spring. Now we got to get our hole for the blade. Now we had holes in this piece of wood that were roughly where we want, but if you remember, I wanted to shift this down by like a 1/16 of an inch so that the spring sits right up in that corner. So what we're gonna do is pin the scale down with the spring in place, and I'm just gonna jam this where I want it and do my center punch. Now, I'm gonna push on it this way because we want the spring to be under tension when it's in the open position.
I tried to use the punch tool, and then I realized the hole was too small for it, so we just marked the hole off screen. But that's not relevant, because we got the hole where we wanted in the end. Now that I've got all the holes drilled where I want them, it's time to put the whole thing together and see how the action feels.
Be a little bit of tension, and that's okay. There we go. There we go. It's all coming together. And then... All right, catastrophic failure, yes, but it's okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to trim the tang here at an angle so that in the closed position, it sits with the tip about here rather than trying to get full 180. That way I can have more support around this pin because clearly there wasn't enough material there. The other thing I'm gonna do is obviously we're gonna remake the spring. Because we're out here, we don't need all this space anymore, so we can slim the design up a little bit while still giving more bolster material here.
So, like, that was unfortunate, but not insurmountable by any means. Making a new spring is easy compared to making a new blade. So, we got this. Part of it is my fault. I should have used a better steel, something a little lower carbon, 4140, something like that. But it's gonna be okay. You guys saw me heat treat the first spring already, so I'm not gonna show you that again. The process is the same, except that I tempered it a little bit hotter to get it a little bit less brittle, a little tougher. Now I'm finished grinding the blade, cleaning up that little swoop on the back, and then it's back to the grinder until I'm happy with the finish and the plunge lines.
All right, this is a piece of brass tubing that I cut and opened up, and now we're gonna flatten it and thin it out a little bit because we wanna make two tiny little brass washers that are gonna sit between the blade and the handle scales so that the blade doesn't get all scratched up when it's being opened and closed. So let's go hammer on this thing.
This hammer was like tucked in a box under a bench somewhere. It's not exactly clean. My bad.
Oh, just a little bit thinner.
I'll give my tools a wipe down next time before we film. Don't do this, because if the drill bit catches the metal, then you're going to have a bad time.
We win. We're a winner. I'm a winner. All right.
The viewers are the real winners.
True. Now I got to make these into little circles, or close to little circles.
All right, Spring 2.0 is out of heat treat. Now we just need to trim it down so that it actually fits. I made it oversized on purpose. That's fine. So I've marked where I need to trim it at the tip, and then I need to trim it up here as well so that the blade actually fits. But then we'll be in business.
5 minutes later.
All right, guys, we're making money moves. As in, the movement is money. It's a little bit loose at the bottom, but the tip doesn't come out past the bottom of the handle, so I'm okay with that. And it's nice and secure up here at the top. All right, it's starting to look like a knife. We're really getting there, guys. The only problem is the blade plus the washers are still a little bit too thick, and part of that means that when I close it, and it's hard to tell here, but there's some scratches that I believe mean that the blade is coming into contact with the liner, which means I just need to thin the blade down. I thinned the washers down a little bit and that wasn't enough, so we're gonna have to go back to the grinder with the blade a little bit. But we're getting there. I mean, I think this is gonna be sweet. All right, we've got the blade here. I thinned it down a little bit and cleaned up the grinds. And honestly, it's looking really good and even on both sides. I'm very happy with how this is looking. So I'm choosing not to hand sand because I'm worried that I would round over those nice crisp lines. So we're gonna try to etch it as is. All right, it's been a couple of minutes. I think that looks really good. So we're gonna neutralize in baking soda water. This should stop the acid from aciding. And then we are just gonna let it sit. I'm gonna try to lay it down on the spine and let it sit. That way the oxides can set up, and then once it's dried off, we can put a coat of wax on it and that'll lock everything in, hopefully.
A little bit of Renaissance wax on the blade will lock in those oxides and keep it looking nice for a long time. Here I'm flattening the outside of the handle scales so that I can draw good reference lines.
All right, so we're about to start shaping these. What I wanna do is I wanna bring this line straight down the back and have it intersect at the bottom here. And then we're gonna have a finger groove there and there, roughly. And then this is gonna drop all the way down to there. Does that make sense? I think that looks good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Then we're gonna do the same thing on both. So I got that back line already. Whoop-de-scoop-de-poop.
After some hand sanding and then some buffing, this thing is going to look shiny and sweet.
All right, we've got all our parts in a place I'm happy with. We've got the blade etched. We've got the scales done and buffed. The spring, the movement is how I want it. Our washers are good. Our pins are trimmed. So I'm gonna mix up this epoxy and we're gonna get to gluing. Now we have to be a little bit careful with our glue up because there can only be glue in the places we want and not in the places we don't, which is true for all knives, but it's especially true for a folder like this. We want glue on these two pins, and we want glue just a little teeny tiny bit in these holes to keep the pin in, but not enough so that the thing doesn't move. I'm gonna apply some glue to the back of my spring. And we don't wanna go crazy here. And then get a little bit on the pin. Kind of get it in the hole area. And then we'll get that spring on there. Clean up inside here. Maybe, there we go. And then this is where we have to be extra careful because I want to get glue inside of these two top holes, but I don't want glue preventing the blade from pivoting. If I was smart, then we would peen these pins, but I'm not. So we're not. Get my washers, my blade, and then this guy.
Here we are, all glued up. Now we need to clamp. I'll do this up top because I'm not actually clamping for glue up top. All right, there it is. Now we leave it. We're done for the day. All right, we're unclamped. I think this is looking really, really cool. The action is perfect. Exactly what I wanted. Snaps into place. It's nice and secure at the top. It's not crazy hard to get out of the bottom. There's a little bit of play there. I just love that. So what we've got to do now is we've got to grind down these pins, clean up what little epoxy there is around, and then do the final sharpening, and then we'll be all done. After a little bit of sanding and some sharpening, here we are. It's done.